It's Tuesday. It is, what's the date today? April 26th. And for a lot of people, sometimes Tuesdays suck. I think sometimes I feel that way. It really kind of depends on the day. But sometimes all about perspective as well. So hopefully your Tuesdays are going good. I actually finally hit up Dunkin' Donuts for the first time in quite a while. Wasn't really feeling coffee. I like coffee, but I don't, drink it a whole lot, really. Not in the mood for it. So if you ever go there, you don't want some coffee, I definitely recommend. It's kind of more, it has a slushy vibe to it. At the same time, it's kind of more, I don't really know. They got a few different flavors, but they're called culottes. They're kind of slushy-ish. At the same time, they're pretty refreshing. So I actually had myself one of those. I don't know why my camera's acting up. Hold on. There we go. I had one of those, and I cleaned my car. Needed to clean. So, but that was pretty much it, and I wanted to hop on here and put some content out for you guys. Want to talk about the NFL draft coming up in 2 days. It's obviously a very exciting time for all of us football fans. The NFL draft is obviously one of the best events for the whole year. For the whole year. And I wanted to just kind of go through. I'm not going to go team by team, but I wanted to go through teams where it might be some interesting, it could really make, or let me rephrase that. It could be a really interesting team in terms of what direction could they go? What direction could they do? And you guys can sound out in the comments. Maybe I'll be talking about your team. You might think I'm a complete blithering idiot. And sound off. Go ahead. I'd love to hear your guys' feedback. But that's all this video is going to be about. I don't want to go too long in the video, things like that. But I would like to kind of dissect certain teams, certain prospects, kind of talk about it. Maybe I'll put my mock draft out there at the end of the video. We'll see. But hopefully your guys' weeks are starting well. I always thank each and every one of you. I would do it individually if I could, but it doesn't let me see who watches my videos, things like that, unless, you tell me. But thank you to all of you who listen to the show, listen to me ramble for 20, 30, 40 plus minutes during the week. It always means a lot to me. Hit that subscribe if you haven't. I would really appreciate it. It really just kind of helps grow the channel, helps me reach more audience, more people who are involved and have a big interest in the sports world. Love to have conversation. You guys can follow me on social media in the link down below. There's a few links in the description. If you guys feel free to want to keep up with things, the channel, you guys can do that. Let's get into it, though. Let's get into it. Draft night, Thursday, 8 o'clock. Okay. Now, let me pull up the draft order here real quick. So give me one, probably more than a minute based off of how this crap always goes. Let's see. NFL draft. Just look at the order here. I can really kind of memorize the order, but, I don't want to, leave anybody out. So we know the Jags have the first pick, okay? Now, the Jags have had a typical Jacksonville Jaguar offseason. Just money, money, money. Here you go. It's the same thing. It really is the same thing, and I'm going to continue to just kind of look down upon their way of business until maybe it starts to pay off and we start to see some consistency from them. Shell out a crap load of money to whoever, but they had the first overall pick. Now, this draft isn't like some other drafts of previous years. It's not, there isn't a lock. There's nobody that's a lock to go number one. This draft isn't really isn't star-studded. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't mean that these guys won't turn out to be good players. Going into the draft, in terms of really their production through college and things like that, there just aren't those stars coming into the draft that were kind of had that stardom in college, if that makes sense. Excuse me. So Jacksonville's got the first overall pick. So Aiden Hutchinson, edge rusher from Michigan, he really kind of threw out the college season was kind of really viewed as somebody who could be the first overall pick. So as of late, I don't know, I'd say the last week or two, Aiden Hutchinson's kind of been not viewed as the number one pick. It's kind of been Trayvon Walker out of Georgia, the defensive lineman. And really, as the offseason started for the NFL, Trayvon Walker started skyrocketing up draft boards. Now, I'm not the biggest college football fan. I'm really not. So I cannot sit here and tell you that I have watched all these guys in college. I have not. I really just kind of listen to what others say about them. I'll kind of maybe look up things in sense of what teams are thinking about them. All that kind of really outside noise. Now, there's some guys that I'm pretty familiar with that I have seen. But there's some guys who I know who they are, but I didn't really watch them much. Because I'm just not a college football guy. But Aiden Hutchinson has kind of really been viewed as the number one guy that's going to go to Jacksonville. But now Trayvon Walker's kind of been getting a little bit of a mantle. But is it possible Jacksonville trades down? You look at Jacksonville's offseason. They franchise tag Cam Robinson, the left tackle. So when you look in terms of offensive line, they could probably maybe use another guy there, sure. But I think when you look at Jacksonville's defense, we know what their defense used to be, folks. Used to be really, really solid, and then they blew it all up for whatever reason. So, Jacksonville definitely lacks... I mean, there's a lot of things they lack, but I think they got certain decisions right in the offseason. But could they go an offensive line route? Could they go Evan Neal, the number one tackle in the draft? Maybe. I think with Jacksonville, I really think you want to just be able to get a playmaker. You want to get somebody who's going to make an impact. Excuse me, folks. Who's going to make an impact, who is going to be a guy that you can just rely on day one. And sometimes there's first-round picks where maybe it takes a little bit of time, primarily sometimes a quarterback. It really depends. But I think Jacksonville just needs guys, man. They need guys. They need dynamic players. So, I'm not saying this because I'm a know-it-all fan. I'm obviously not. So, for Jaguar fans, maybe they'll disagree with me. Maybe some will agree with me. I don't know. I think really when you look at Aiden Hutchinson or Trayvon Walker, I think that's the pick for them simply because those are the two highly ranked best players in this draft. And both really have a high ceiling to be really solid players. So why not do that? You have Trevor Lawrence already. You added a couple receivers in free agency. Sure, you could maybe use a little O-line help. But I think with you being the number one pick, what's going to be available to you? You always can get better defensively. Why not go with one of them? So, I think it's going to be Aiden Hutchinson. I know there's been talk. He might fall. Things like that. I think it will be him. Jacksonville, who knows? Maybe they'll trade down. I don't know. I don't think they will, but that's what we'll do. Now, Detroit. Detroit is the picking second. And they're a little interesting, but on the other side, I feel like it's just people blowing smoke. Now, I've seen people think Detroit's going to take a quarterback. I don't think so. I don't think there's any quarterback in this draft, and I'm not saying this because I'm an expert. I'm not saying this because I'm a freaking person behind the microphone GM. Not at all. Not at all. I'll leave no decision-makings up to people who actually watch the tape, to the people who actually scout these guys. But I feel like with Detroit, last year, they were a competitive team. They only won a few games, but they were always in it a lot of times. They played hard for their coach. I do like Dan Campbell from what I've seen. Again, I think Detroit's in a position to go get... You need guys. I've seen people say quarterback. I don't think they're going to. Next year, Detroit's still not going to be good. Next year, if they have a top 3 pick, they could probably have their way with a quarterback. Next year's quarterback selection's more balanced. There's more guys going out that are viewed as solidified first-round guys. this year's quarterback class, I'm not saying that any of these guys aren't going to be good. Nobody really knows how good rookies are going to be or really what these guys' futures are going to be. But I think in terms of picking 2, I don't see any of these guys going at 2. No. I don't think those guys have really solidified themselves for teams to select them at number 2, even though Detroit lacks a franchise quarterback. I think Detroit will just probably roll with best player available, who they like the most. And it will probably be Aiden Hutchinson or Trayvon Walker, depending who goes number 1. Now, maybe Detroit goes somewhere else. I don't know. But I don't think they go quarterback with number 2. Will they take a quarterback? Probably. Not at second overall, though. Now, moving on here. Like I said, I'm not going to go through every team, but Texans pick 3, Jets pick 4. So the Jets have 2 picks in the top 10. They have the 4th overall pick. They have the 10th overall pick. Jets could go some offensive line here, for sure. I mean, there's plenty of offense. It's not a bad offensive line draft at all. And they could go that route if they want. I also think they could go the route of trying to just get a dynamic playmaker offensively for Zach Wilson. They could do that at pick 10. There's guys like Jamison Williams, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, all wide receivers. Drake London if he's there at 10. Heck, they could go cornerback. They could go Sauce Gardner. That's who I think they're going to take it for. They could go Derek Stingley. They could go Justin Hamilton. The Jets have some options. They could even trade for all I know. But I think the Jets are definitely going to go for an offensive playmaker with one of these picks. And maybe they'll try to get a defensive stud. So there you go. Giants also have 2 picks in the top 10, 5 and 7. I could easily see a trade up from one of these teams that won a quarterback somewhere in the middle of the top 10. I could see it. Panthers at 6. They've been linked to a quarterback. They have Sam Darnold. They've been linked to Jimmy G and Baker Mayfield. None of that's come to fruition. Do they really want to roll with Sam Darnold again? This is why I think that they might take one here at 6. Kenny Pickett is viewed as probably the most ready-to-play quarterback. I mean, he's almost, 24 years old now? I think he's the most polished, matured quarterback ready to play. So they could pick him and try to roll the dice and see what they can get out of him. That's possible. Seahawks are interesting at 9. Does Seattle roll the dice on a quarterback at 9? Because Drew Lock right now is their quarterback. They brought back Geno Smith. Baker Mayfield's been linked to him. Do they pick a quarterback at 9? I don't think so. I think Seattle's obviously in a rebuild situation, but I don't think it's a long-term rebuild. I think it's somebody they're going to just try to get guys, get really solid players. Next year, they can have their way with a quarterback. Now, speaking of quarterbacks, there's a few teams I can easily see going quarterback round 1. Carolina, New Orleans, especially with their trade with the Eagles that gifted them another first-round pick. I could see them using that as some leverage to move up. The Steelers, and like I said, Seattle, I don't think yet for them. The Lions, not early, but maybe they move back up in the first. I think those are really the teams when it comes down to picking a quarterback round 1. And I think there will be some trade-ups. Like, I think with the Giants' 5 and 7 picks, I could easily see a team moving up into that, right? I could maybe see, I don't know if the Jets want to maybe make a move. Vikings at 12. There's some options. But when I go through some of these teams here, like the Eagles are interesting. I could easily see the Eagles taking one of those wide receivers at 15. The Saints, if they want to keep both their picks, they could go probably a quarterback at 16. Go get somebody else at 19. The Cardinals, it's kind of crazy with the Cardinals. The Cardinals have had an awful offseason. Don't care what you say. They've had a terrible offseason. Lost Chandler Jones. Kyler Murray's disgruntled. Christian Kirk's gone. Chase Edmonds is gone. They don't have any corners. Jordan Hicks is gone. They need help. They need help at receiver. DeAndre Hopkins has been a little injury prone lately. Other than him, you don't really have somebody right now that can be another guy for Kyler Murray. A.J. Green isn't that, you know. Any of the young guys haven't really stepped up yet that's currently on their roster. Their offensive line, it's taken some pretty good shape the last couple years. But I think really what's a concern is cornerback help. I think a little bit of some edge rush is a concern. Wide receiver help. They did bring back Zach Ertz, which is good. So the Cardinals here at 23, what can they do? They could definitely go wide receiver here at 23. There's going to be some guys there. They could go corner. There's probably going to be a couple solid corners there that are viewed as first-round guys, 100%. You could probably have an edge rusher there at 23. Cardinals have some options. The Cardinals have some options. And the Cowboys at 24, it's funny with Dallas. Dallas could use a receiver, right? But they really could use some help on their offensive line, and they could use another strong defensive player. I feel like Dallas is just one of those teams, man, that just goes with whatever's the sexy pick. Really. Whatever, at least they try. Whatever's the sexy pick, not necessarily straight need. Whatever looks good for their brand. That's how I feel, and that's why I think they're just going to probably take somebody who everybody freaking knows that might have fallen off the board, but if they want to go offensive line, Zon Johnson's a guy that could be there, offensive lineman, interior offensive lineman. Kenyon Green, I feel like he's kind of dropped off some boards, though. I mean, Tyler Linderbaum's there, but I really could maybe see Buffalo going after him. Trevor Penning, there's a tackle there. They lost Lyle Collins. There'll be a couple receivers there. I'm not really quite sure about edge or front seven necessarily, but again, they have some too. Now, here comes Green Bay, another team that's got 2 picks in the first round. Are they finally going to draft a wide receiver? If they do not draft a wide receiver in the first round, I will just laugh. 100% they have to be drafting wide receiver round 1. 100%. Now, maybe they have 2 first-round picks. Maybe they use one of that to move up more to go get somebody that they really like. Same with Kansas City at 29-30. You would think they would probably draft a wide receiver, them signing Juju, but Juju hasn't really proved a lot the last 3 years. You have Marquez Valdes-Scantling from Green Bay, speedy guy, but again, like, talk about overpay, number 1. Number 2, I don't think he's anything that special. You lose Tyreek Hill. You need some help there. Mecole Hardman, he's not, I don't really view him as somebody that's going to light up the room. They could definitely use a top-tier wide receiver out of round 1 and plug that into the offense. So, I think really with the teams I listed that are the most interesting to look at in the draft. First overall pick's a little interesting. But I think the teams that could possibly trade up for quarterback, I think maybe what you see what the Cardinals might do is Green Bay, Kansas City, some of these teams that have a couple first-round picks, those are all viable teams to trade up. Maybe even Baltimore. Baltimore's got a plethora of picks in the 4 first rounds. In the first 4 rounds. So they 100% could. And even with them, speaking on them too, cornerback, they could go. Marcus Peters has had some injury issues. They're pretty thin there behind him and Marlon Humphrey. They could always do that. I think they could definitely use some offensive line help. Ronnie Stanley's obviously been injury prone, but I think the offensive line obviously hasn't been the same the last couple years. It's kind of hurt their offense. They could 100% go interior offensive line. They need some front 7 help, man. Their edge rushers are ass. They have no front 7. Last year, they were, obviously, injury problems were big for them. But they could use help in the front 7. 100%. So, that's a team as well. But I think in terms of the most interesting prospects, if we want to get into that, I think we could definitely put... I'm very intrigued by Malik Willis. And I'm not saying this as a Steeler fan. I'm not saying that this is who I want them to take, who I think they should take, blah, 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 blah. Just going through prospects. Malik Willis is very interesting. Malik Willis is probably the biggest boom or bust prospect there is. He's got some good size. Sure, it could be maybe a little taller, but he's got good size. He's got great mobility. He's got a very strong arm. And he's probably somebody, whoever grabs him, he isn't going to start right away. He'll probably sit, kind of like a Trey Lance situation. But I think out of all the first-round type of prospects, Malik Willis is definitely a guy who has the ceiling to be a franchise-caliber quarterback. 100%. There's people that love him. There's people that like him. There's people that don't think he's going to turn out to be anything. But ultimately, who knows? It really ultimately comes down to him and what he's able to do in the NFL. I know Mike Tomlin loves him. The Steelers have taken a lot of time focusing on quarterbacks, and this is why I am 100% sold on them taking a quarterback round one. They've spent so much time with all these quarterbacks through the draft, pre-draft process and everything like that. Steelers are a team that doesn't smokescreen. I know Tomlin loves Malik Willis. You could just see his reaction to Malik Willis' pro day. I'm 100% sold on that. Who will it be? I don't know. Could be Kenny Pickett. Could be Malik Willis. Could be Desmond Ridder. I think it will be one of those three. But Malik Willis, I think, is the most intriguing prospect simply because what he's capable of doing, what he can possibly be in this league, or maybe he just doesn't turn out. And sometimes those are the chances you take in the draft. I also think as somebody who, again, I'm not really a Pitt fan, but Kenny Pickett is interesting as well, speaking of quarterbacks, because, and yes, I know I'm from here, but like I said, I'm just not a big college football guy. I hope they do well. It's good to see the program do well, but I wouldn't sit here and say I'm a Pitt fan. But Kenny Pickett, you look at really his first few years in college, average. Really, that's really what he was. And last year, he just took off. I mean, great season. I know he set certain records at Pitt. Kenny Pickett is somebody who doesn't have the strongest arm in the world, but he's somebody who I think is kind of a smart quarterback. I really do like his size. I think he's a hard-nosed player. I like some of his accuracy as well. And he's somebody as well who's ready to play. So whoever takes him, I don't see Kenny Pickett sitting. At least, yeah, camera, great. At least like a full season, not at all. Guy's got to play. Guy's got to play. So I think really just because of me being from here, and obviously Kenny Pickett was a lot of talk around him this year, and how much of a blossom it was from his first few years in college to his senior season was remarkable. And I understand the concern about that, but I think as well, when you're starting to blossom in that final year, you know, that can lead to a lot of good things maybe. A lot of things that were untapped has come out, and now maybe more of that can. I don't know. I don't know if that even makes any sense. But it's interesting to see Kenny Pickett where he's going to land. I don't know why my camera's acting up. I'm sorry. Come on. Hold on. Yeah, it's just going to mess everything up. It's just going to be a blur, isn't it? Okay, there we go. I'm going to have to get a new camera. I mean, this thing is pissing me off. But I think those are as well. I think a guy like Kyle Hamilton, the safety from Notre Dame, is as well. I don't really understand why he's been going down people's boards. I really don't know. But he's somebody who I think has really good, from what I've seen, good intangibles, good instincts. I feel like he's somebody that finds himself around the ball well. I think he's a guy that can read a quarterback well. I'm not going to sit here and put a scouting report on him. I can't really do that. But I know that he's obviously the number one ranked safety in this draft and has been kind of projected as a maybe top 5, like that 4, 5 through maybe 8 territory. But I've even seen people see him at like 11, 12, 13, and not necessarily that that's a bad thing. Sometimes that works out in your favor. But it seems like with him, there's a lot of talent there, and he seems like somebody you can't pass up on. Especially if a guy like that can fall in the hands of a right team who is well coached defensively. You know, a lot of times, sometimes when guys fall, that's a blessing in disguise. Because now you're starting to get in more better team territory, maybe some better culture, right? So that's another intriguing prospect. I think Sauce Gardner is one as well. Cornerback, number one ranked corner. And this guy was just absolutely locked down in college. Can he repeat that in the NFL? A lot of people view this guy as a top 3, top 4, top 5 pick. I could see the Jets going after him. Why not the Texans at 3? Why not the Lions at 2? The Lions need defense, but the thing is with the Lions, they can't develop anybody. Why do you think they're ass all these years? You look back at their drafts. Look back at Detroit's drafts the last 10 years. They can't develop anybody. Nobody's on the team anymore. But Sauce Gardner, I think, is very interesting just because of how shut down he was. And really, how much has he matured going into this year's draft? Now, I'm going to put my mock draft out there. My mock draft that I personally did. And you guys can let me know in the comment section if you want. Let me know what you think. Let's see. Let's see here. All right. So, hold on. You guys can fast forward in the video if you want. All right. So I believe this was this one my final one? No. Okay. Where was it? Where was it? It's got to be down here somewhere. Okay. So, I can't find it, but I'm just going to go on one of those websites, you can create your own drafts and stuff. And I'm just going to do it off there and tell you guys what I had, because I remember who I had. So, I do think Aiden Hutchinson will go number 1. I do. I know that there's been some things said about him. I know that Trayvon Walker has taken a huge leap off draft boards, but I think Jacksonville will want to go with somebody they know can make that immediate impact. And Trayvon Walker's a guy that can do that too, I'm sure. But I'm going to go with Aiden Hutchinson. I think he's shown that. Number 2, to Detroit, we're going to go Trayvon Walker. That's your 1-2. It's just a matter of who goes where. Now, with the Texans, Texans could use some help on the offensive line. They could use some help defensively. So this is where a guy maybe like a Kayvon Thibodeau comes in, though he's kind of been falling. This is when a guy like a Sauce Gardner can come in. But I think they're going to go with somebody that can be a future left tackle for them, and it's going to be Evan Neal, the best tackle on the board. Coming to the Jets, this is another interesting one as well. Tackle, some defensive help, a playmaker on offense, they can go. I think, but they're going to go with the sauce. They're going to go with somebody that can be a lockdown guy in that secondary, Sauce Gardner, the Jets. Now, I'm not going to do this draft based. I'm not going to do trades in this draft. This is just a straight mock draft on where teams are at. But certain guys that I put on these teams doesn't mean I have them falling down the board. It means I think these teams will at least make a trade up for certain guys, and you'll see. Giants, pick number 5. Think they really want our team as well, that they need some help at receiver. They need a playmaker, man. They have not had that. They're already shopping receivers. Evan Ingram's been a bust. Saquon Barkley has not turned out to be who they hoped for due to injuries. Daniel Jones, obviously a big question mark. But I think at number 5, they're still going to help try to shore up that offensive line. Maybe that might help Saquon a little bit better, make life a little easier for him. If they don't trade him, they're going to go Ika McQuonwu, the second best tackle on the board. Some people say first, and that's fine. Now, Carolina as a team I could maybe see trading down, consider maybe they're a team that wants a quarterback, but they're not going to take one at 6, maybe get some more draft capital. But because such the uncertainty of that position, I think Kenny Pickett is the guy at 6 because he is ready to play. And Carolina needs that, and it's not going to be Sam Darnold again. Number 7, with the Giants again. They, again, could use some defense, get a playmaker on that defense, which I think they will, and it's going to be Kayvon Thibodeau, the edge rusher. Atlanta, pick number 8. Now, they need receiver help really, really bad. They don't have anybody except for Kyle Pitts on that offense. You can always go with the best player that you seem fit available. But I think Atlanta's going to be too hard to pass up. I think Atlanta's going to view it as too hard to pass up on one of these top receivers. Drake London, Atlanta Falcons, pick number 8. Seattle, another interesting team. I think Seattle's just going to try to roll with, just try to get a bunch of solid guys as they transition into the next period of quarterback. They're going to go Derek Stingley Jr., the corner. Now, here we are back with the Jets. I think the Jets at pick 10, they need a playmaker. They could still go. I mean, they could go. Kyle Hamilton's on the board, and this is what I said. But they could still go edge. They could go safety. I had them pick they still could go tackle. But they did help out their offensive line, though, as well, the last couple years. I think they're going to go with a big playmaker, Garrett Wilson from Ohio State, pick number 10. This is where Kyle Hamilton finally comes off the board to Washington. Washington had a very disappointing defense last year after it was viewed as a top defense going into the season. I think they're going to get somebody in that backfield. Landon Collins is officially gone. They're going to get somebody to help surefire that backfield and hope they can get the best out of him. I think he's a guy with a lot of potential here. I think Kyle Hamilton is bound for Washington. Pick number 12, Minnesota. Minnesota could use some interior defensive line help. They could use some safety help, I'm sure. I mean, you can never go wrong getting, if you need another wide receiver. I think Jordan Davis comes off the board here, the stud defensive tackle from Georgia. Houston picks again at 13. Now, this is where it can be a little interesting, but the fact Houston went with some offensive line, they have a couple guys receiver. They can always go with that. But I think, again, Houston's in a position you're just wanting to get best players available that you view, guys that you think can really be some long-term answers there. I like Jermaine Johnson. They need an edge rusher. They need help there. I think they roll with him. Now, here comes Baltimore at 14. I talked about this. Few different positions they can go. And I've had fun with it before in terms of who I've had them taking. But I think in terms of looking at front seven and edge rush help, defensive line help, I think there at 14, there isn't really many. I think you can maybe get a little bit more value in different positions. So I am going to go Trent McDuffie, one of the top cornerbacks on the board for Baltimore. Add him to the mix in that secondary. That's a very, very strong secondary in the NFL. Now here comes Philadelphia, pick 15. Philadelphia, they could use a corner. They could use some help on defense. They could really use a wide receiver. And I think that's what it's going to be before guys like New Orleans gets in there and a couple other teams. I think they take Jameson Williams, the wide receiver out of Alabama, who probably would have been the number 1 ranked wide receiver if he did not get hurt. The Saints, pick 16. Now, this isn't me saying Desmond Ridder is going to fall at 16. I think this is probably a sweet spot for Desmond Ridder, and that's who I'm going to have the Saints take as one of their picks. Now, you might be saying, well, what about Malik Willis? Well, I'll get to that. Chargers at 17. They could use some help with tackle. They could use some help on the front seven. When I was kind of scrolling through, I kind of liked... where's he at? Devin Lloyd, the inside linebacker. I think they could get a little bit better there. Now, that'll probably be wrong. If you're a Charger fan, you're probably freaking wondering what the hell's wrong with me, but this is what mock drafts are for, right? Eagles picking again at 18. I think Eagles roll with George Karlaftis, best edge rusher on the board, somebody that they need and that can maybe make an impact right away. Saints at 19. Offensive tackle, I think this is where Charles Cross goes. Charles Cross has kind of fallen off the board for me, not because I think that he's not good, but just because I think some of these other guys surpassed him in terms of really what they can offer to these teams. Now the Steelers have picked 20. I am having Malik Willis to the Steelers, but I think the Steelers will trade up at some point, and it will be above the Saints, and that's why I have Malik Willis to the Steelers at 20, though I do not think it will be pick number 20. Trust me. Saints at 21, or Patriots at 21. Awful offseason. I really think they could use help at wide receiver. Chris Olave, wide receiver as well. That goes there. Right above Green Bay. Now, Green Bay could even make a trade up, like I said, for a wide receiver. But Green Bay really needs one as well. I think maybe you could see a couple guys here, but we're going to go Treylon Burks to the Packers. Cardinals really need help in multiple different areas. But I'm going to go Andrew Booth, the corner out of Clemson. I think that would be a great value pick for them. Dallas, I was thinking maybe some offensive line help. But again, I feel like they like the sexy pick. And you know what we're going to roll with? Jahan Dotson, the wide receiver from Penn State to Dallas. Buffalo, I like Tyler Linderbaum there. Maybe get some help at center. I do kind of like also with, now 26 is Tennessee. Could go wide receiver. You could go defense, which I think is what they're going to do. And I'm going to have Khair Elam go to the Titans at 26. Buccaneers, go some interior offensive line, safety, wide receiver. I think Zion Johnson goes to the Buccaneers. They got Shaq Mason. They lost, what's his face? I know they lost one of their guards to retirement, and another guard to Cincinnati. I think they're going to go Zion Johnson. Another guy to help Tom Brady. Great athlete. He's a guy that's very versatile. I think they roll with him. Now, Green Bay, they picked their wide receiver, right? I think they're going to go tackle. They get Trevor Penning. They get a tackle there to replace who they've lost. There you go. Kansas City pick 29. Wide receiver, corner, edge, safety. There's quite a few they could go here. But be honest with you, my friend, I think with them having back-to-back picks, where's he at? I think you're going to see David Ojabo come off the board. Probably would be a little higher if he didn't get hurt. I think they could use some edge help there. Wide receiver, I like them going wide receiver here, but there's some guys where it's like, do you really want to kind of take them in round one? I feel like it's really plausible they trade up for one, but I think that they're going to try to go maybe defense here again. I'm going to have them take Daxton Hill. I know they signed Justin Reed, but they still could use some help back there in the secondary. We'll have that for now. Cincinnati. I don't really know with Cincinnati. I don't really know. When you look at it, like, they don't really need offense. They upgraded their offensive line. Could maybe use some cornerback help. I don't really know. I feel like this one's a little tough. Let's go Lewis Cine, or Lewis Sign, however you pronounce it. And then with pick 32 to Detroit, I'm having them take the best player on the board, Devontae Wyatt. There's your mock draft, folks. There's your mock draft. Let me know in the comments what you think about that. Let me know in the comments who you think your team is going to take. Let me know in the comments what you thought about that mock draft. I'm going to end the episode there, folks. We're about 40 minutes in, going over my mock, going over certain teams, what they could be looking at, different prospects that can really be intriguing coming out of this draft. I know we're all excited for Thursday night, but thank you to each and every one of you taking the time to listen. It was a fun show. I enjoyed doing this. We'll be back sometime later this week with some more content. Again, you guys can hit the links down below in the description to follow me on social media. They're all there. If you want to keep up the channel, interact with me, feel free to your heart's content. But again, thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good rest of your week. And like I said, we'll be back sometime this week. We'll probably be talking about the NFL draft this week, I think. So in the meantime, we'll catch you later. Have a good week, folks. We'll see you.